Good evening and welcome. This is All for Women's Football. It is Lower League Lingo week number 14, and we are back once again to discuss everything that's happening all the way down in those lower reaches of women's football that you don't necessarily see week in, week out. It doesn't have its own YouTube channel, does it? The old WNL, the WSL does, the Championship does, but everything below, no YouTube channel. Could we be it? That's not for me to say. But we're certainly trying to shine a light in some of those places. So we've got our usual gang back, just about. There was a bit of a worry this morning as to whether or not that was going to happen. But we are all here. We are all okay, I hope. Mr. Foster, are you okay?
I'm very okay, thank you. Fresh off the back of watching Leaffield against Birmingham on Sunday. So a couple of different teams that I haven't seen this season so far, and it went to a penalty shootout. So really enjoyed that game.
You never know which club he's going to name drop there until just at 1 minute he's like, there we go, I'm going to drop that one in next.
I dropped them all.
I love it. And Gareth, how are you doing, sir? Good day.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you. Free weekend this weekend for us. No fixture, so yeah, I'm just looking forward to my first John Foster bingo. When the myriad of clubs all get mentioned in one show, and I'll randomly shout bingo. So just whenever that happens, a pre-warning that it may do at some point. But I'm not going to try and force it, and I don't think John should either. I think it will organically happen at some point.
Yeah.
I look forward to that moment.
Well, me too. I think it's something to add a little bit of fun and spice to our evening. There's plenty to talk about over the next half an hour or so, but we're going to kick off, as we always do, with our... There it is, just about coming up. There we go. Our lovely little screen of stats. And I've got to be honest, John. I've got to be completely, brutally honest. As I was writing this one up, I'm thinking Northern Premier, so it's got to go first because it's tier 3. We're going to throw that one in. You're starting a show, and we're kicking off with Derby 0, Sporting Calcer 0. Now, you're a silver-tongued young man, I've got to tell you. So, I'm expecting it's going to take a good one now. How have you chosen a 0-0 draw as the curtain raiser for tonight's Lower League Lingo? Explain it to us.
That was the opening question. I was actually going to ask that question myself, just to start it off. So I will ask that same question. How can a 0-0 draw be my pick of the week? Well, it's one of my picks. It's purely because it's got a massive impact towards the bottom of Tier 3 North. So it's not so much the game itself, even though there were chances which we'll discuss. It is purely because of what it means to Calcer, Derby, and the teams around them as well. So Calcer, just like Halifax did back in September, managed to sneak a 0-0 draw against Derby, which has now put them in the driving seat to stay up in Tier 3 North this season, putting them in a driving seat over Stourbridge, that is. So Stourbridge are now just 2 points ahead of Derby. And I can see Barry's already got a smile on his face. I'm sure that'll come out to me as a white shortly. Gareth, don't worry, you're not going to win bingo just yet. It's not going to be this episode, I promise you. But how can
I think I'm 3 for like 5 already, and I know one's going to come later, so I'm just waiting for one more.
You're not going to get it. You could, because that team also won. However, let's get back to it. Calcer are in the driving seat purely because they've still got to play bottom of the league Halifax twice, which is a potential 6 points there. So it has made a massive impact. Derby have managed to drop points to Calcer, drop points to Halifax, but they haven't dropped points to Stourbridge. So that to me is massive when so many teams are struggling to get points outside of or above teams who are finishing 9th or above. So it is absolutely massive, yeah. So out of a 22 game season now, it's really proven to be just what happens within 6 of those 22 games. against when the bottom of the league just played each other, which is a massive shame, really. But you can still enjoy the occasions, of course, in some of these games. But it really is just coming down to when the bottom three play each other, and that's kind of proving now. Derby had the exact same start 11 to who won Stourbridge last week, 3-0, while Sporting Castle made 3 changes, bringing in Rhea Acton, Annabelle Davis and Layla Kennelly. Derby did have chances in the first half, a free kick in the 10th minute, and had a goal ruled out after 21 minutes. 3 more close efforts by Derby in the second half, but it was Calcer defenders who actually came out on top, managing to get a point out of this game to keep it 0-0. So the Calcer manager, Andy Mulligan, post-match, kind of saluted his team's performance in regarding to the back-to-back clean sheets, which is obviously a big thing when you're towards the bottom of the league, and questions like, how hard they battled, and really impressed with that. But it is still plenty of points available, and he's enjoying it as well. So for me, I think Derby County have a massive part to play in this bottom of the league. Yes, they're not going to be in the bottom 2, but they're still going to play every game, every team again. And also, the last game of the season is actually Derby versus Stourbridge. So it is absolutely massive down the bottom of Tier 3, and a lot to play for at the moment.
Absolutely massive down the bottom. That wasn't on my bingo list of things we're going to be talking about today, but you're not wrong. It's an absolutely huge result for Sporting Calcer. And if we take a moment, just have a look why. As you can see here, there wasn't a huge number of games being played across some of the leagues. Obviously, there are some County Cup and other sort of cup games that have been occurring over the course of the weekend. So it has been a bit of an interesting week for it. But again, as you can see there at the bottom, Sporting Calcer, it's another point closer to Stourbridge, another point further away from Halifax. So again, really big for them. The only real movers and shakers, though, this weekend were, of course, Nottingham Forest returning to the top of the Northern Premier, Burnley swapping places with Rugby Borough, and Derby County with their point just above West Bromwich Albion. And of course, this is since the last time we looked at the Northern Premier. So there we go. Right, let's move on and see what else we've got. It's me. I've relegated Gareth into 3rd place for once. And I've got to be honest, this was a tricky one for me because there were 3 matches that I wanted to choose this weekend. And I had to sort of I'm an R as to where I was going to go with it. And I rarely have that. I'm usually there with 2 matches, I'm sorted, no problems. But this one really did get me. And the reason why it got me was because we are looking again in the league, Southern Premier. I mentioned it to you last week. My match to watch, if you remember, we was talking about some massive games that are going on. I told you Ipswich and Oxford was one to be looking out for. So naturally, I thought I'd won my own bingo because I thought I've gone away, I've chosen a match that everybody should look out for, and I'm actually going to be able to talk about it the next week because it was just that good. And it was. Ipswich beat Oxford 4-2. So there's me sitting there going, I've nailed this one. Brilliant. Let's have a little chat about how Ipswich have really extended. And then I looked at this and I'm like, hang on a second. Watford 2, #0. Now, it might not seem like the biggest result in the world. Watford comfortably mid-table at the moment, not really troubling the top teams that are fighting up at the top. As we mentioned, you've got Ipswich Town sitting at the top. You've got #, who are 2nd. Oxford were 3rd. Exeter City were 4th. But the thing that's been interesting about Watford is that despite a slow start, they really started to pull themselves together. Their last game was against Exeter City, and they won it. Exeter, I just told you, were 4th. They were a side that were up there gunning for the top. So to go to #, you would think wouldn't have been one of the easiest things they were going to do. Now, Watford, like I said, their results very patchy. They're drawn to Wimbledon in the FA Cup before that, although they did go through on penalties. They had lost to AFC Wimbledon the week before in the league. So it was, like I say, a win, a loss, it's not the greatest for them. But hashtag have been on fire. Absolute fire. I can't quite explain to you just how amazing hashtag United have been. They lost their second game of the season to Ipswich, which is no bad thing, really, when you consider how good Ipswich have been. But then from then, they'd already beaten Watford in the first game of the season. They went on a 13-game unbeaten run. That's including cups as well. So this game against Watford would have made it 14 games unbeaten. That's the level they were at. They'd been wiping away teams, including Ipswich, who they'd played in the cup as well. So they're on a massive run at this point. And Watford have turned up and just stopped them in their tracks. It's a proper... it's like when you watch those films that have got the robbers running away from the police, and the policeman just opens the car door and boom, in goes the robber, and it stops them completely. And that's what's happened here. They've been absolutely knocked off their bicycle here of hashtag. And in an amazing moment, I can even go down the John Foster form of communication here, because I've seen both of the goals, which again is quite rare for me. I don't always get the chance to do it. But the first one from Jessie Gale right at the very beginning was quite a simplish one, really. She's in at the far post, ball's crossed in across the 6-yard box. She comes in at the far post and turns it in. But the second goal, Coral Jade Haynes, my word, take a bow, because the ball comes in from a throw-in. She picks it up maybe 35, 40 yards out from the goal, runs a few yards, lets one rip right from, must have been about 30 yards, flies over the top of the goalkeeper, just underneath the bar. Absolute rocket. Two brilliant goals. Really very impressed. I will point out to you that Sheni Muir and Emily Joyce do not play for Watford. Their information wasn't on full time. So as a result, I was finding their goals and then forgot to delete those. So they were obviously from the previous game. They are Derby County players. So just so nobody's getting confused, that's what's happened there. This is why we should have things on full time as best as we possibly can, because it means I'm not going to 4 different places for information. But you don't just have to do it for me. Do it so you don't get fined. That would be the right reason. But anyway, brilliant stuff. So Watford, 2-0. Absolutely amazing. Love it. You can see Gareth laughing. There's an inside joke there. Don't worry. But yeah. So for me, huge. And when you look at the league table to see what that does to it, we've not looked at the Southern Premier for quite some time. There's been about 5 or 6 games played since we last looked. Ipswich, top of the table, all looking well. Again, hashtag have gone up, not because they lost a match. That's not how it works. But they have gone up since we last looked at the table. 26 points there as well. But Ipswich, 2 games in hand. And it's just opening up now. It's there for the taking for Ipswich Town. Good God. This is not a good one, this, is it? Not a good look. It's terrible, because as a teacher, you notice these things and you go, But there we go. This is the problem when we set our own little deadline for this starting. Ipswich Town, top of the table, looking good, and it is really looking like it could open up. If they win those games in hand, they really could be one of the teams that makes it to the Championship. MK Dons, the only other team to stay where they are. It's been positive for Oxford Lewis and AFC Wimbledon, all of whom have moved up a few spots. And as we said, Watford have just dropped down. So was it a big match in terms of Watford's season? Probably not, but it does get them going a little bit. They're 9 points off of Ipswich. It's unlikely, but there we go. So for me, absolutely massive game. It's pulled hashtag right back out of it. Oxford have had a little struggle there as well, having lost to Ipswich. Huge. So could all change in the Southern Premier with Ipswich fighting for the title. Right, I'm going to go and hang my head in shame at my inability there to spell Ipswich and to delete. Whilst I'm doing that and chastising myself suitably, we're going to move over to Gareth, who is going to talk to us about AFC Fylde, who have lost by 2-0. Why did you choose this one, Gazza? Can't hear you, mate. You're gonna have to unmute. That's it's a basic. If you don't do that, we struggle.
There we go. It wouldn't be very teacher-like if I didn't accidentally make that mistake. AFC Fylde did lose 2-0 Barry, but they lost against Cheadle Town Stingers, not Chorley Women. The goal scorers are correct, just the badge that isn't. But the reason I've picked this, and the reason it's important to highlight the kind of mistake, is this result. First of all, has huge implications at the top and bottom of the league. AFC Fylde have changed manager. They have made changes in terms of backroom staff. They've recruited some players. It's not yet working for them. They currently sit bottom of the league. York getting important wins recently. They've moved off the bottom, still not out of the relegation zone, but they are currently only in there on goal difference, whereas Fylde are down in terms of points. So AFC Fylde currently sit rock bottom of the league, and after dropping down from the Northern Premier Division last year, I say it time and time again, they need almost to find their tracks. We talked about hashtag getting stopped in theirs. Fylde are not yet on the tracks, so they need to pick up points. They need to, I don't know, get a good result from somewhere, to hopefully start to build some momentum. And I think the kind of lack of showing on the pitch shows in that attendance of 89. There wasn't huge amounts of people there, not many at all. And yeah, I think it shows. But all credit to Cheadle Stingers. This result moves them to the top of the table. On goal difference, over Leeds United, and a point clear now of Middlesbrough, who dropped points again. So that's 2 weeks running now where Middlesbrough have dropped points, and has moved them off the top of the table. And they are now 1 point behind both Stingers and Leeds. They've played a game less than Stingers, but as I've said before, I would rather have points on the board than excuse me, than games in hand. Started off well, obviously with Harriet Horton getting that goal early on, 6 minutes into the game. Looked as though there may have been a way back for Fylde if they were able to create something, find a way through. If you can claw things back to 1-1, you never really know then what is going to happen. But that wasn't to be, and Izzy Dean put the game to bed after 89 minutes. The reason it's huge in that Cheadle Town Stingers moved top of the table is that last season there were 2 leagues between these two sides. AFC Fylde last year were plying their trade in the Northern Premier Division, and Cheadle Town Stingers were plying their trade in the North West Regional Premier Division. So, for a side coming up, I've spoken in the past about how difficult that can be, and I think Barnsley FC, who drew 2-2 actually with Middlesbrough, they are down in that relegation battle. They're a point clear of the drop zone. I kind of thought that Cheadle would be comfortable this year. They absolutely have the quality to mix it in this division, and I thought they would. I didn't quite think they were mixing it right at the top. And all credit to them. They deserve it. They're a good club. But yeah, I just find it particularly interesting that the promoted side is now top of the table and a relegated side sits rock bottom again. And I think it just shows how important momentum is in football. I bang on about it all the time, but you can take a winning side from the season before and keep winning, and you can take a losing side from the season before, and it can be difficult in the pre-season to fix that, to change that, and changing the manager hasn't seemed to work for Fylde so far, and they will. They've played 10 games. They their next league game is the halfway point. So they need to find points. They need to find them quick. And Cheetah will be hoping to carry on winning and pushing on as they, if they can push that title, that'll be absolutely incredible for them, and great for the Northwest region.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think I know that Elenia Carrotbot, who's playing there for AFC Forward. I'm sure she was at London Seaward a season or 2 seasons ago. She may have even come to Stevenage for a trial period as well. So, sure, that was who it was. A great Maltese player there. But yes, very interesting. Division 1 North, as you said, has seen Cheadle Town Stingers make it to the top of the table. With Leeds United moving up a little bit as well. Middlesbrough dropping down. Barnsley FC and Stockport County, the only other movers and shakers in that league. And surely you really would have thought I'd have noticed it from that, wouldn't you? Whatever. Let's move on to Division 1 Southwest and see where we are here, because once again, it's me. But it should tell you that the other two have gone slightly lower in their league choices. And this is where I nearly went tier 5. Nearly. Because I wanted to talk about the London South East Regional League. Big game happening there as Dartford beat Dorking by a 1-0, which had potential promotion ramifications up there as well. But how could you not talk about this match? Again, I'm scrolling past it and I'm like, this is absolutely unreal. Now, I know we spoke about Swindon last week, and a good conversation was had by all. But this was another massive result. 2 teams vying up at the very top of the league, looking for that opportunity to make it into the Southern Premier Tier 3 next season. And both of these sides have got the ability to do so. Now, will it happen? Only for one. And that's the thing that's really big about the Division 1 Southwest. We've brought it up a few times. We've spoken about them a few times. And we said Bournemouth, Swindon, and of course Moneyfields are the 3 teams that you would probably put your money on in terms of going up. But which side that's going to be at the moment is anybody's guess. Bournemouth have obviously got the advantage. They had an 8-0 win, I think it was, against Portishead Town. So they've had an absolute blast. They're enjoying life. Swindon and Moneyfields both knew. Swindon had just gone top last week. That was why it was that we spoke about them. And they knew that this match was going to be a really, really big one. And it was. And it was big for Moneyfield. Moneyfield's been hit and miss again this season. It was their 4th game unbeaten drawing this one. But they had 1 loss in 8. That loss in 8 was against Real Bedford in the WNL Cup. So their league form has been okay. Swindon were unbeaten in 7 games now. 6 wins at home, this is. 31 goals scored and 10 conceded. They're having a really good season, Swindon. So it's the old immovable force against the unbreakable object sort of thing, isn't it? It's just impossible of these 2 teams. And when you look at the ebb and flow of the match as well, wow. So Swindon kick it off right at the very beginning. Libby Davis there with a goal. And immediately, if you're Swindon, you're thinking, here we go. Here we go. It's the same thing that we've always done over these last few weeks. And it's a brilliant start. So if you're Moneyfield, you might be thinking, it's not going to be an easy one now. Got to try and find our way back in, which they did. Megan Fox scoring in the 15th minute. Brittany Gill in the 19th minute. 2-1 up now at half time. So now it's Swindon's turn to try and come back. But Moneyfield's come straight out in the second half. Their player of the match, Shannon Albury, scoring in the 48th minute. Oh, hello, 3-1. Now, if you're Swindon, you'd be forgiven for thinking, well, that's that over. But no, 54-55. Annabelle Colston, Libby Davis, 3-3 all of a sudden. Swindon retake the lead. 70th minute through Annabelle Colston. And when you look at that, 4-3, that's mad. Again, your Moneyfields now, you think we've just done all that. We're 3-1 up. Now we're 4-3 down. Both sides could have been forgiven for not managing to make it back in this game. But Megan Fox transformed the result. There's a joke in there somewhere. Gareth's seen it. By making sure that the goal was scored in the 77th minute. And it's point shared. And honestly, these sorts of games, they're just rife throughout the lower league. Finding these games where one team does incredibly well, another team comes back, fights for it, takes the lead. the ebb and flow of some of these lower league matches is just on point. And I just can't understand why there wouldn't be so many more people wanting to go and watch these games on a Sunday, because, granted, you're going to get a few that don't necessarily tickle the taste buds as much as you might like. But these games are out there to find. And what a match. What a match this was for Swindon and Moneyfields. And like I say, for the league, it's huge. It means that Bournemouth retake their position back at the top of Division 1 Southwest, with Swindon dropping down, having just worked really hard to win that back in the first place. The only other change, obviously, Bridgewater United swapping places with Worthing. But that's huge. When you look at that league table, it's huge. Because, again, 2 games in hand for Bournemouth. Win that, they're 7 points clear of Swindon, and that is not an easy way back. But, as Gaz has said earlier on, it's better to have the points on the board than the games in hand. Bournemouth at the moment have both. And that is a dangerous, dangerous prospect indeed. So there we go. That's me done now. So now we get pretty pictures. Look at that. I'm hoping I've done the right badges for this one. It looks like I have. But this is the Northeast Regional Women's Football League, and it is not an easiest one to find, this one. Now, I did manage this morning when I looked, nothing on full time, because Gareth was one of those who got his information slightly earlier for me, so it did make it a little bit easier for chasing it through on this one. So I was able to find them. But you find them on Twitter. I mean, some of the names in these places, they do sound quite old. I'm not convinced that the Northeast Regional area has understood Wi-Fi at this point just yet, because their Twitter hasn't been updated, I don't think, in quite a while. But thankfully, they did update full time, and there's your information. So we do have something to see, which is quite nice. And Gareth can take us through it. Why did you choose this match?
Yeah, so I chose this match. On the face of it, unspectacular in terms of the game, but again, it's for the implications that the game could have. So generally, a county cup weekend, and I'm so on county cups, which is why I've picked 2 league games here. I think they're fantastic competitions, but sometimes with the way that teams are often mismatched, there's nothing really that jumps out to me. But at the top of the Northeast Regional Premier Division, Chester the Street went into this weekend with a substantial lead, a 6-point lead, but having played a game more than Alnwick Town. So this was an opportunity for Alnwick to close that gap to mean that if Chester the Street tripped up at all, then the opportunity would be there for Alnwick to pounce. York Railway Institute sit mid-table, so it would have been a game that Alnwick Town were looking at going, let's close this gap. And although they did, it was only by a point and not with the 3 points that they were hoping. It is a relatively important point as well for York Railway Institute. They are, like I said, mid-table, but they have played considerably more games than a lot of the teams around them, which I'm sure we'll see shortly. So getting those points on the board is important for them, as well as other teams will begin to catch up shortly. But yeah, it's a point of Alnwick Town and Chester the Street, 2 sides that have previously been in the National League, as well as Bradford. So there's 3 sides with National League history, kind of there or thereabouts towards the top. Bradford are 6 points back on Chester Street. So, but it feels very much now not like the title is won. There is still a long way to go, but the ball is now in Chester Street's court. You know, they are in control of their own destiny, so to speak. I well, almost in charge of their own destiny. They will have to play Alnwick at least once. I'm not sure they might need to play them twice, but advantage is very much in Chester Street's court here, and yeah, it may feel for Alnwick Town like a bit of a missed opportunity to keep the pressure on. Chester the Street are now able to have an off week, and I think sometimes that can be all that decides titles. That can be all that decides championships when things are so close. We've seen that throughout other leagues, just how close things are at the top. So for one club to be able to eke out a little bit of a gap, definitely doesn't take the pressure off because, like I say, there's a long way to go, a third of the way through the season, really. But yes, it hopefully Chester Street will be looking at this as a good result for them, and Alnwick may be looking at this as 2 points lost in a title race rather than 1 point gained when everybody else was on county cup duty. I don't know if Barry is frozen or not.
He's not frozen.
I can talk a bit about the league. So, this league at the moment, like I mentioned, Chester Street are indeed top. Alnwick Town are second, like I mentioned, with Bradford there or thereabouts. South Shields previously had been in and around a title challenge. So those three sides very close. Alnwick Town, Bradford, South Shields. There we go. Very close. It all the way down to York really are super close in that sort of second mini league, really. Interesting thing to point out, though, is that Spennymoor have only played 5 games for some reason. So there is, the possibility for them to put themselves right back in that conversation as well. So there is still a lot of potential with this league. That relegation battle as well could become interesting. One result either way for Harrogate, Hull, Wallsend can really either drag themselves away from it or make it particularly interesting if it's Harrogate that get that win. Although, like I say, they do have more games played and a inferior goal difference compared to the rest of the league. But there's a long way to go. Some of those teams have only played 7 games, 5 games. They're a third of the way through the season compared to other leagues, where we're approaching the halfway mark for a lot of other leagues. So I don't know if the Northeastern League started a bit later. I think they did, but they have played fewer games than a lot of people. For Spennymoor to have only played 5 games as we approach mid-December is a bit surprising, really.
Are you back with us, Barry?
I kind of am, and I'm kind of not. I'm not entirely sure what's happened with the Wi-Fi, but I will push it across. Well done, Gaza, for taking us through that. And yeah, I don't know why Spennymoor are down on 5 there, but I did find that quite interesting myself. Well, we've got an absolute doozy of a match here. So what he didn't have in the first game, he's made up for in his second game. He started first. He's going to finish us off, and it is Shrewsbury Town against Shifnal Town, the two STFCs. Tell us more.
Yeah, a lot more goals in this game compared to my first match. Shrewsbury this season are like such an up and down team. The league form is not so great, and the cup games are fantastic. So they knocked Northampton at the FA Cup. Northampton are obviously top of Tier 4, and I think I might have spoke about that game on here about 2 or 3 weeks ago. Before that, they knocked out one of their league rivals as well. So I think consistency in the league is just the only thing that's lacking for them to be having a fantastic season. Shifting, on the other hand, extremely consistent. That's why they're top of the league. 22 points out of 24, which is absolutely amazing for what they're doing at the moment. As I was coming out the stadium on Sunday, not this game, it was another game. Everyone's checking the phones and I'm checking all the results, what's happening. And Shifnal was described as the team has proven to be the real deal. So I think obviously they started off really well, kept on winning, kept on winning some good teams as well. But you kind of think, okay, the bubble's going to burst at some point. At the moment, it's nowhere near bursting. So, they're really, if you're one of their rival teams, and there's quite a few of them for Tier 5 West Midlands, if you're looking at this score, you're thinking, flipping out, we've got to do it. We can't rely on Shifnal to drop points. We've got to win them when they play them. So yeah, fantastic to see Shifnal actually showing that they can maintain it, and it's not just a bit of a fluke in the opening few games. Massive shout out to Shifnal as well for their goal graphics. I do actually like looking at them. They are quite creative. So great shout out there. Just lacking a bit of description, I guess. They don't really say the times that the goals go on, and they don't really say who scores it on the Twitter. So that's a shame, but I do understand it's not always that easy. And Shrewsbury's even less. So if you go onto the Shrewsbury Twitter, it is just literally the half-time, full-time. And you do get a post-match as well every now and again, post-match video. But ultimately, it is hard to.
You're right on that, because I went on the Twitter and actually the Shifnal picture was beautiful. The way they'd done it, everything is set up really nice.
Yeah.
And I just looked at that as from a fan's point of view at first. I went, if I'm a Shifnal fan, I'm going to know who those players are.
Yeah.
But if I'm not a Shifnal fan, that's where I struggle. And I think, I don't know, because on our club, we do have the names on them as well. But then I'm wondering, do you need them? So what's your take on that? Because I was really intrigued by that, like you say, because it looked so professional.
Yeah.
But I couldn't tell which one was which. So hence why I don't know what the orders are or anything like that.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting because you obviously would know who the goal scorers are by the graphic. So someone who's tweeted that graphic would know who the goal scorer is because they've chose that particular graphic, but they haven't mentioned the time of the goal or the player's name. So as long as the player's name is on there somewhere, whether it be typed out or on the graphic. But like I say, we are being quite picky. But obviously, when you are trying to research, once as you said earlier, Barry, you've got to go to 4 different places to see it. But the design work is fantastic, and we've seen that throughout the season. Some of these Tier 4, Tier 5 graphics are phenomenal. Just lacking a bit of information. So all I do know is that Shifnal were 2-0 up at half time. Then they went all the way up to 5-0 up. Then Shrewsbury scored in the 56th minute by Kim Bebbington. And the 79th minute, Mia Jackson. Shifnal goal scorers were Jenna Bodison, she scored 2, Rebecca Lee Bowen, Grace Field, and Taylor Davis. So I managed to get all the information together from FA Full Time and a couple of different social media accounts somewhere. So it is accessible, just a little bit awkward, I guess. So I kind of thought to myself, how am I going to end this little segment, this little match report? So what I'm going to say is, Shifnal, top of the league, clearly top. Won 7 out of 8, I think, and they've only drew the 8th game, so they haven't lost yet. And their next 4 games going into Christmas are all away from home. But I'm glad you got the league on screen, so I'll just read them out to you now. They play Port Vale away, Burton Albion away, Knowle away, and Camden Court away. So yes, there's 4 away games. However, if you're top of the league and you're looking at that opposition, you'll be thinking to yourself, that could be 11 wins out of 12 going into Christmas, which is potentially phenomenal. So, yeah, I'll leave that one with you, Barry.
Thanks. And we'll leave it with everybody else as well, so that they can enjoy that. But absolutely, I did find it interesting when I was doing it. I'm like, he's picked a league and only one team has moved up, and that's Alvechurch. Sorry. So you're thinking to yourself, that is quite a thing. But yeah, Shifnal Town absolutely bossing that league at the moment. Right. I think it's time for us to get rid of that for a start. There we go. We get our lovely faces back in. There we are. Right. Whose lovely face shall we start with? Let's start off with Gareth today. Gareth, where should the people of the North be diverting thine eyes this weekend?
So, I'm kind of making my own rules with this one, because one of the teams plays in the Northern Premier Division, even if they're based kind of in the Midlands. But because I know John's not picking it, I'm going to go for. Let me just double check the name of the team that are hosting. I apologise. But I'm going for an FA Cup game because we love the FA Cup on this show. And what more could you want from a lovely weekend than the FA Cup? And that is Tier 6 Long Itchington are hosting Tier 3 frontrunners Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup. So I'm kind of bending the rules, but it's a Northern League. It's within my jurisdiction just about. And I think that that's an incredible game. I'm sure John would agree if his game wasn't happening, that would be one where his attention would be. Although John's game isn't actually happening at the weekend. Spoiler.
I've got a reason for it though.
Yeah, I think that's an incredible occasion. Long Itchington hosting Nottingham Forest in the FA Cup. Long Itchington have only played a handful of games in their league so far this season. I think they might have played 2 or 3. Really not that many. John may know more because they're a West Midlands side. So yeah, hugely interesting. Potential huge upset on the cards. And if there's not an upset, then what an occasion for Long Itchington welcoming what very well may be a championship club next season to them in the FA Cup.
Absolutely agree. John Foster, what about the Midlanders? Where should
Yeah,
they
some
be
of my game.
looking and their little beady eyes?
Yeah, so it's good. We've moved it to a midweek game, so it was scheduled for obviously the Sunday, but to try and give the occasion the kind of what it deserves, we've tried to get as many people down to the stadium by shifting it onto a midweek game. So it's at Agborough, it's Kidderminster at home in the FA Cup against Stourbridge. If I could talk 24 hours straight about this, so message me privately if you want to, and I won't stop talking about it. But the big deal is it's Tier 5 against Tier 3. They're about a 15-minute drive from each other. But more importantly, there's currently 19 people who either play, coach, or manage at Kidderminster Harriers, who 12 to 18 months ago was all at Stourbridge. So I think that kind of sums up a lot of things you need to know. But yeah, feel free to message me privately or go onto my Twitter or my Facebook because it's swamped with information on there.
There you go. It is going to be a big game. And I've got to be honest, I've been looking through the FA Cup as well. And there's notable mentions. We mentioned some of them already today. Look at hashtag and Ipswich. They are going to be playing off. Oxford United and Watford. They're going to be playing off. Fulham are going to be hosting Royston Town, which sounds like a massive match. But when you then consider, of course, that Fulham are at exactly the same level as Royston Town as it stands at the moment, that just sort of plays with your head a little bit. But listen, boys, I'm not even going to apologise for it. The one that I have chosen today involved my own side again. I had to do it. And that is because Stevenage women will be hosting Luton Town. Now, for anyone that knows, that's a local derby. Stevenage and Luton, they are about 25 minutes apart from each other. When you take it just in the general clubs, there's a little bit of a rivalry, not a massive one. Luton have obviously been in the Premier League. Stevenage can only dream of the Premier League at the moment. But there's that locality going on. And it's also interesting because if Stevenage win this one, it'll be the first time they've made it past the second round of the FA Cup ever in their history to make it to the third round. But for Luton, what a season this would be for them again. Last year, they made it to the fourth round of the Women's FA Cup, where they were unceremoniously dumped out 6-0 at home to Brighton and Hove Albion, who turned out to be really good lately, haven't they? So maybe that was a sign of things to come, how they managed to absolutely boss a side down lower on in the leagues. But for me, it's the only place you'd want to be. It's going to be Luton. It's going to be Stevenage. It's a local rivalry, possible history in the making. And if you did come there, you could say hello to me. So, I mean, how many more reasons do you want? So there you go. So that's the one for me. It's the only place my eyes are really going to be. but I did give you some honourable mentions of some other places that have got some absolute tip-top banging matches as well. So don't come at me too much. Listen, I've loved it. It's been superb. It's been really good. I'm sorry that my Wi-Fi has not been working. I'm about to go and severely chastise my laptop. But whilst I'm doing that, you lot can say goodbye. Gareth, John, lovely to see you. Take care of yourselves.
Thank you very
And we will
much.
see you all next week. So long.